Now, turn the page. I got one more to read. In Luke's Gospel, chapter 7. A very similar happening. We got what happened in Luke 5. 2 chapters later, a short period of time later, in Luke chapter 7, remember who was in the house? Pharisees, doctors of the law, scribes, who were very critical of Jesus. Luke's Gospel, chapter 7, verse 36. One of the Pharisees. Now, it doesn't say that he was there in chapter 5, but I think possibly he was. And I'll tell you why in just a moment. One of the Pharisees desired him that he would eat with him. And so Jesus, went to the Pharisee's house, and he sat down to meat. And behold, a woman of the city, which was a sinner. That's all we're told about her. A woman, I guess, known to some people known as a sinner. A woman of the city, which was a sinner, when she knew that Jesus sat at meat in the Pharisee's house, brought an alabaster box of ointment. And she stood at his feet behind, weeping, and began to wash his feet with tears, and to wipe them with the hairs of her head, and kissed his feet, and anointed them with ointment. But when the Pharisee which had bidden him saw it, he spoke within himself, saying, If this man were a prophet, he would have known who and what manner of woman this is that touches him, for she is a sinner. Now he said, if Jesus were a prophet, he would know. I want to know, how does the Pharisee know? How does he know? Well, to give him the benefit of the doubt, maybe he's just been looking out the window, Maybe he's just been keeping tab on what everybody else is doing. There's people like that. They know everything that everybody else is doing, And maybe he's like that. Maybe he just happens to know. But he says, Jesus, if he would know what kind of woman this was that's crying and touching him with the hair, it really bothers him that the woman is touching him because she's a sinner. Guess what? Sinners can't come and touch Jesus. When sinners touch Jesus, they get what they need. They get restored, And so Jesus, he does know. You think he doesn't know? He knows who's touching him, and he's glad about it. He wants us all to touch him. When we come near to him, see, she's drawing near to him. You would think that she would be hiding off in the shadows, right? What is it about this woman that makes her so able to come right into the presence of Jesus and draw very near to him and touch him and draw near? Why is she able to come so close to him? Verse 40. Jesus answered and said, Simon, I have something to say to you. Now I could just picture the tension in the room. Oh, you do? Well, yes, well, say on. This is like, I don't know, I just picture how this must be. I have something to say to you. Uh-oh. That's what I think. Verse 41. And here's a little story now. He wants to tell him a little story, a little parable. There was a certain creditor who had 2 debtors. One owed him 500 pence, the other owed him 50. In other words, one owed him a lot, one owed him just a very little. Verse 42. And when they, meaning both of them, when they had nothing to pay, he frankly, meaning freely, forgave them both. When the one owed him a lot, the one didn't owe very much, but neither one could pay. So he freely forgave them both. But here's the question. Which one of them loves him the most? Now, remember, one of them owes a lot. One of them doesn't owe very much. And so neither one can pay. So they're both freely forgiven. Notice that. They're both freely forgiven. What is Jesus telling us about this? Well, the creditor, the one who is owed the debt, is God. Can we understand that? The Pharisee is like the one who doesn't think he owes very much because he thinks he's basically righteous. The woman is like the one who owes a lot because she is considered to be a sinner, at least in the eyes of the Pharisee. She's seen as a sinner. She owes a lot. But he says, in terms of from God's point of view, neither one of you can pay. Neither one can pay what you owe. So here's what God says. He says God freely forgives them both. He says God frankly, freely forgave both. But he asked a question. Tell me which one loves him the most. Simon answered and said, I suppose he to whom he forgave the most. Or may I add, who knows he was forgiven the most? A lot. He to whom he forgave the most loves him the most. And he said to him, you have rightly judged. And he turned to the woman and he said to Simon, do you see this woman? I entered your house and you gave me no water for my feet, but she has washed my feet with tears and wiped them with the hairs of her head. Thou gavest me no kiss, but this woman, since the time I came in, hath not ceased to kiss my feet. My head with oil thou didst not anoint, but this woman hath anointed my feet with ointment. What is he saying in this? He's saying, Simon, I came into your house and you don't feel like you owe much to God. You feel like you're basically pretty good, so you haven't exhibited much love to me. But this woman, see, he's saying she believes she's forgiven because she's exhibiting this kind of gratitude and this kind of love. She's drawing near to Jesus and pouring out this love upon him because she believes. Do you see that? He freely forgave them both. Which one loves the most? And she is exhibiting this kind of love more than Simon because she believes she's forgiven. Now, so far he hasn't said anything to her. How did she get the idea that she was forgiven? You know what? I think she was there back in chapter 5 in the crowd. He didn't say so, but I picture her in the crowd, hanging around those scribes and Pharisees. I picture she was in the crowd there, and she saw that man come through the roof. And Jesus said to him, your sins are forgiven. And she might have thought, you know what? Here's a man just giving away forgiveness of sins. And if he says to that man, your sins are forgiven, maybe my sins are forgiven too. And as she thought about that, she began to realize, hey, look how much he's forgiven sins. And so she is coming into the house to this one who forgives sins and pouring out this love upon him. Do you see that she already believes she believes it already? And this kind of love and gratitude, Jesus said, is the result, the fruit of someone who believes that their sins are forgiven. Verse 47. Wherefore I say to you, her sins, which are many, are forgiven, for she loved much. In other words, this love exhibits the fact that she believes that these sins, which are many, are forgiven. But to whom little is forgiven, the same loveth little. And then he turns to her and says, just so she's sure that she's got it, not secondhand from him saying to the man on the bed, he turns to her and says, your sins are forgiven. Did you notice this is no different than what he said to the man on the bed? No different at all. He doesn't say, because you have come in here and exhibited this exhibition of love, therefore I forgive your sins. He just tells her, your sins are forgiven. And he's implied through what he said that she already believes that, or she wouldn't be acting the way she's acting. Your sins are forgiven. And again, verse 49, they sat at meat with him. They that sat at meat with him began to say within themselves, who is this that forgives sins? They're still, they don't get it. They're very critical. Verse 50. And he said to the woman, your faith has saved you. Go in peace. What faith? Well, faith in Jesus. Her belief in this Jesus who forgives sins. Now, the point I'm making to you is this. If you believe this, if you accept what I'm saying today, now I've given it to you from Hebrews, which is quoting from Jeremiah. Their sins and iniquities I will remember no more. I've shown you two examples of Jesus. And in his own parable, he said the father, the creditor who was owed the debt, freely forgave. If you believe this and let this sink in on you, what it inspires in you is a heart of gratitude and love. You can get so full of this that you can be just like this woman, just overflowing with love and gratitude to the one who freely forgives us. And it causes you to draw near to him. And that's the whole goal. Okay, let's all stand up today. You're patient listeners. Thank you for that.
Jesus!